Hey YouTube, Kira Twig here, bringing you all my Silent Magician Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck profile for April 2023. I've always been a big fan of the silent level monsters, and it does feel like the Silent Magician lineup has been overlooked compared to the Silent Swordsman, with just having less monsters in the deck to work with, and moreover having a playstyle that focuses more with the Spellcaster lineup, which with the Silent Swordsman being warrior monsters, definitely having a lot more generic monsters to work with. But I went for more of a control playstyle with the Silent Magician lineup, since you can stop spell cards with your new Silent Magician monster. I say new, but this card's definitely been around for a while, and then being able to get out some of the other level monsters when this card is destroyed. So let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. So for our main deck monsters, I'm running 3 copies of Silent Magician. It cannot be normal summon or set, must be special summon from your hand by tributing 1 spellcaster type monster, and cannot be special summoned by other ways. This card gains 500 attack for each card in your hand, and once per turn during either player's turn, when a spell card is activated, you can negate the activation. And if this card is destroyed by battle, or this card's owner's control is destroyed by an opponent's card effect, you can special summon 1 Silent Magician monster from your hand or deck, except for Silent Magician, ignoring its summoning conditions. So while you could get out your Silent Magician level 4, you can most of the time want to go for your Silent Magician level 8, being another bigger boss monster that's just as difficult for you and your opponent to utilize on the field for you, and then for your opponent to get over, and also just being able to be unaffected by your opponent's spell cards. And then Silent Magician having a spell negation, and then just if your opponent does destroy this card, having it so you get another bigger boss monster out on the field. I also run 3 copies of Silent Magician level 4. With this card, each time your opponent draws a card, place 1 spell counter on this card, maximum 5. It gains 500 attack for each spell counter on it. And during the standby phase of the next turn after your spell counter is placed, you can send this card with 5 spell counters to the graveyard to special summon 1 Silent Magician level 8 from your hand or deck. So Silent Magician level 4 most of the time is just going to be your tribute, so you can summon out your Silent Magician onto the field. You really don't want to wait to get all of these spell counters for the draws that your opponent would do. You do have the option with cards like your Silent Burning, which this card allows you to have your opponent draw until they have 6 cards in their hand. So you could ideally get the 5 counters right then and there with your Silent Magician, but it's more of a setup that you don't want to have to rely on. So just using this card as part of the engine to special summon out your Silent Magician. But the bigger boss monster that you could summon out with either monster is your Silent Magician level 8. Along with the draw power, we do have the option of level up as well in the deck to summon out Silent Magician level 8 using level 4. With this card, it cannot be normal summon or set. It must be special summoned by Silent Magician level 4 and cannot be special summoned by other ways. It's unaffected by your opponent's spell effects. So being a 3,500 attack point monster, being that difficult to get over with just a monster alone, and for the fact that you can special summon it off of your Silent Magician, makes it all the better as just another monster resource if your opponent does get over the first initial Silent Magician you summon out onto the field. For more of a spellcaster engine as well, I run 3 copies of Summoner Monk. We do run a good number of spell cards in the deck, so we just have the discard fodder for us to use with our Summoner Monk to summon out our Silent Magician, and then using one of the tributes, whether it be Summoner Monk or Silent Magician level 4, to then summon out our Silent Magician onto the field with those cards. You will have more of a discard investment with the Summoner Monk on the field, so you will lose some of the cards in your hand, but as long as you have a couple, you can power up your Silent Magician to a pretty high lineup for your opponent to try and get over. And for the last of the main deck monsters, just 3 copies of Effect Veiler, Hand Trap of choice, more so for the fact that this card can also be a card you summon out onto the field and tribute to get your Silent Magician on the field against your opponent. That is it for the main deck monsters. We'll now move on to the spells. I run 3 copies of Silent Burning. During the battle phase, if you control a Silent Magician monster and you have more cards in your hand than your opponent, each player draws until they have 6 cards in their hand. This card's activation and effect cannot be negated, and you can banish this card from your graveyard to add 1 Silent Magician monster from your deck to your hand. So you could use the draw power. I mostly do have this card in here as an option to search out your Silent Magician, because then you could just send this card to the graveyard, banish it, and then you have your search for whatever Silent Magician monster you may need into your hand, being an additional search power option, but going for our main boss monster of the deck to begin with also. I also run 3 copies of Level Up. We do run 3 copies of Silent Magician level 4, so just having a quicker way than having to rely on your opponent drawing 5 times to go into Silent Magician level 8. You can just use your Level Up to level up the level 4 Silent Magician, which could also be searched off of Silent Burning if you already have your original Silent Magician on the field, to search that card out, summon it, and then go for the Level Up play into your 3,500 attack point boss monster. And as for more of a draw engine in the deck, I am running a Spellbook lineup. If you wanted to run Spellbook Magician of Prophecy, which is the main deck monster, you could always consider taking out Summoner Monk for that monster as well in the deck. But for the spell cards, I run 3 copies of Spellbook of Knowledge. You just send to the graveyard either one spellcaster type monster you control or one other Spellbook card from your hand or face on the field to draw 2 cards. So this is just a send and setup. If you have the spellcaster on the field, it can really power up the Silent Magician, because then you will be adding those cards to your hand, making that card even more powerful. It goes well with the Summoner Monk setup, like I said before, because the monster will be on the field, and then you can replenish those cards in your hand. I'll go over the combo at the end of the video for that. But I also run 3 copies of Spellbook of Fate. Now, this is just a way to protect your Silent Magician on the field. If your opponent tries to go through another method aside from destroying this card, you can use cards like Spellbook of Fate to either flip that monster face down or just banish it in total. And being a spell card that doesn't, target when it banishes or sets makes it all the better, and also gives you resources to return a set, spell, or trap your opponent may have also. For more resource recycle, I also run 2 copies of Spellbook of Eternity, being able to target a banished spellbook and add that to your target to your hand, so whatever you banished off of your Spellbook of Fate with this card. And Spellbook of the Master to copy other cards in the graveyard, so you could use it to copy Spellbook of Knowledge and get additional draws, or the Spellbook of Eternity to get back banished cards. And also for some of the one-ofs, 1 Spellbook of Wisdom to protect our Silent Magician on the field from spell or traps, 1 Spellbook of the Judgment for more draw power. This card especially can help you get to some insane numbers in your hand, and also give you special summon options depending on how many other spellbooks you activated the turn. And 1 Spellbook of Power for the power-up option of 1,000 attack onto our Silent Magician, and then when the attack hits and it destroys a monster by battle, getting an additional search to our hand also. And for some more generic spell lineup in the deck, I run 2 copies of Secret Village of the Spellcasters. With this card, it just gives the option, while you have your Silent Magician, your opponent can't just activate any spells to begin with. So you may have the unaffected power of Silent Magician level 8, but you also just have the complete shutdown by controlling a spellcaster on the field thanks to this card. I also run 2 copies of Foolish Burial Goods to finish off the spell lineup, just so we can send Silent Burning to the graveyard and then banish it to have our Silent Magician search, depending on whatever Silent Magician we wanted to add to our hand. With the last of the cards for the main deck being 3 copies of Rivalry of Warlords. Each player can only control 1 type of monster. So with this, we're only really going to control spellcasters for the good majority of the time in the deck, so it can just be another way to completely shut down your opponent and any other type of plays they may want to do. It's the only trap I feel you need in the deck. You rely more on just your hand consistency and the other spell cards we run to go with our Silent Magician monsters. And that is it for the main deck. Moving on now to the X deck for our spellcaster lineup of Link monsters. 1 Crowley, the first Prophecyr. For the search power, once again, for our spell book cards. 1 Dark the Dark Charmer for our Dark Attribute Magician Search. 1 IP Masquerena, along with 1 Cross Sheep, 1 Hippo Shenengen, and 1 Relinquished Enema for another spellcaster option with our Effect Veiler. And for the other Link monsters, 1 Nightmare Unicorn and 1 Apollosa for the Link 4 and Link 3 plays. For our Xyz monsters, 1 Perform Mage Trapeze Magician, 1 Alchemic Magician, 1 number 104 Masquerade, 1 Tornado Dragon, 1 Downward Magician, 1 Dark Rebellion, and 1 Sky Arsenal Zeus for the generic level 4 plays that we can go into. A lot of times I don't want to use Silent Magician for an Xyz plays, but if I have to, I will result in that if the resource means I can extend my plays even further. And then as for some of the go-to plays in the deck, like I said before with the Summoner Monk play, if you go for the discard of a spell and then have the additional search, depending on what spell you may discard from your hand to the graveyard, you'll get your search for your Silent Magician monster to then be summoned onto the field. And then you could use the Spellbook of Knowledge that's in your hand to send the other spellcaster type monster and potentially draw in to not only your Silent Magician, but also have one additional card in your hand for you to have. So with those cards, you can then tribute out the last monster you have on the field, summoning out your Silent Magician, and then having the additional card along with any other card you may have in your hand, depending on what they are, to power up this card to at least 2,500 attack if it is 3 cards in hand with it. And for the other level up plays, you have the search power with the Summoner Monk before, being able to summon out your Silent Magician level 4. If you have your level up, you can then activate your level up spell and then use the level up play along with that card to go from your Silent Magician level 4 into your bigger boss monster Silent Magician level 8, all the quicker, and then still have the additional play, if you do so, and have the card in your hand, to summon out the level 8 and then tribute the Summoner Monk that's still on the field as well to go into your Silent Magician, having the spell negate and then another monster that is unaffected by spells and one that can gain additional power for every card you have in your hand. But that is it for the deck profile. I hope you all enjoyed. It's just a little fun deck, and I definitely do feel like Silent Magician is due to get some new support, whether they be additional level monsters or just more support that can focus all around the Silent Magician to begin with also. And as always, until next time, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and Kira Twig out.